his virgin daughter than he would have thought of disobeying the orders of the Tur. In that country, custom, as he implied, is all in all. He answered mildly, "Zee, the Tish is in no danger, and it is my belief that he can take very good care of himself." "I would rather that he let me charge myself with his care. Oh, heart of my heart, it was in the thought of thy danger that I first felt how much I loved thee." Never did man feel in such a false position as I did. These words were spoken loud in the hearing of Zee's father, in the hearing of the child who steered. I blushed with shame for them, and for her, and could not help replying angrily, "Zee, either you mock me, which, as your father's guest, misbecomes you, or the words you utter are improper for a maiden Gy to address even to an An of her own race, if he has not wooed her with the consent of her parents. How much more improper to address them to a Tish, who has never presumed to solicit your affections, and who can never regard you with other sentiments than those of reverence and awe." Aph Lin made me a covert sign of approbation, but said nothing. "Be not so cruel," exclaimed Zee, still in sonorous accents. "Can love command itself where it is truly felt? Do you suppose that a maiden Gy will conceal a sentiment that it elevates her to feel? What a country you must have come from!" Here Aph Lin gently interposed, saying, "Among the Tisha the rights of your sex do not appear to be established, and at all events my guest may converse with you more freely if unchecked by the presence of others." To this remark Zee made no reply, but darting on me a tender reproachful glance, agitated her wings and fled homeward. "I had counted at least on some aid from my host," I said bitterly, "in the perils to which his own daughter exposes me." "I gave you the best aid I could. To contradict a Gy in her love affairs is to confirm her purpose. She allows no counsel to come between her and her affections." Chapter 24. On alighting from the airboat, a child accosted Aph Lin in the hall with a request that he would be present at the funeral obsequies of a relation who had recently departed from that nether world. Now, I had never seen a burial place or cemetery amongst this people, and, glad to seize even so melancholy an occasion to defer an encounter with Zee, I asked Aph Lin if I might be permitted to witness with him the interment of his relation; unless, indeed, it were regarded as one of those sacred ceremonies to which a stranger to their race might not be admitted. "The departure of an An to a happier world," answered my host, "when, as in the case of my kinsman, he has lived so long in this as to have lost pleasure in it, is rather a cheerful though quiet festival than a sacred ceremony, and you may accompany me if you will." Preceded by the child messenger, we walked up the main street to a house at some little distance, and, entering the hall, were conducted to a room on the ground floor, where we found several persons assembled round a couch on which was laid the deceased. It was an old man, who had, as I was told, lived beyond his 130th year. To judge by the calm smile on his countenance, he had passed away without suffering. One of the sons, who was now the head of the family, and who seemed in vigorous middle life, though he was considerably more than 70, stepped forward with a cheerful face, and told Aph Lin that the day before he died his father had seen in a dream his departed Gy, and was eager to be reunited to her and restored to youth beneath the nearer smile of the All Good. While these two were talking, My attention was drawn to a dark metallic substance at the farther end of the room. It was about 20 feet in length, narrow in proportion, and all closed round, save near the roof there were small round holes through which might be seen a red light. From the interior emanated a rich and sweet perfume, and while I was conjecturing what purpose this machine was to serve, all the timepieces in the town struck the hour with their solemn musical chime. And as that sound ceased, music of a more joyous character, but still of a joy subdued and tranquil, rang throughout the chamber and from the walls beyond, in a choral peal. Symphonious with the melody, those in the room lifted their voices in chant. The words of this hymn were simple. They expressed no regret, no farewell, but rather a greeting to the new world whither the deceased had preceded the living. Indeed, in their language, the funeral hymn is called the birth song. Then the corpse, covered by a long cerement, was tenderly lifted up by 6 of the nearest kinfolk and borne towards the dark thing I have described. I pressed forward to see what happened. A sliding door or panel at one end was lifted up, the body deposited within on a shelf, the door reclosed, a spring at the side touched, a sudden whishing, sighing sound heard from within, and lo! at the other end of the machine the lid fell down, and a small handful of smouldering dust dropped into a patera placed to receive it. The son took up the patera and said, in what I understood afterwards was the usual former words, "Behold how great is the Maker! To this little dust he gave form and life and soul. It needs not this little dust for him to renew form and life and soul to the beloved one we shall soon see again." Each present bowed his head and pressed his hand to his heart. Then a young female child opened a small door within the wall, and I perceived in the recess shelves on which were placed many paterae like that which the son held, save that they all had covers. With such a cover a Gy now approached the son, and placed it over the cup, on which it closed with a spring. On the lid were engraven the name of the deceased and these words: "Lent to us," here the date of birth; "recalled from us," here the date of death. The closed door shut with a musical sound, and all was over. Chapter 25.